Welcome to the Thinking Green News Moment. I'm Chris Schneider. Today my guest is Al Geddix, professor at UWL and author of Resource Rebels. Welcome, Al.
Thank you.
So, Al, Professor Geddix, you've in your book Resource Rebels that those who are concerned about global warming and the fate of the world's forests and the loss of biodiversity look at the role of native peoples in defending their lands and culture from mining and oil companies. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Okay, native people inhabit the last resource areas of the world. The world's remaining energy, mineral resources tend to be in the more remote parts of the globe, which are also the places that are inhabited by native peoples. In order to defend their lands against the unwanted and ecologically destructive projects that are being proposed on their lands, they've organized themselves, they have petitioned international bodies, they've initiated lawsuits against corporations that have already despoiled a large part of their environment, and in so doing they are essentially protecting not only the resources on their lands but also preventing the excessive carbon dioxide emissions that would come from deforestation, from oil development, from the burning of fossil fuels, the extraction of minerals. In other words, they are the guardians of the world's environment. And it is important for people in the developed countries, including the United States, to understand that the struggles which are going on all around the world are efforts to preserve the global environment for all people.
Now, Professor, you've recently received some criticism about the lifting of the moratorium on nuclear energy in the state of Wisconsin. What's wrong with trying to use nuclear power and in reducing our burning of fossil fuels?
Well, the nuclear industry has tried to convince people that nuclear power is a carbon-free and emission-free source of energy. The problem with that is that it ignores the fact that in order to get energy from nuclear power, one has to mine uranium. And the mining of uranium is a very energy-intensive process, requires large amounts of fossil fuels, which have to be burned and emit carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. So if you take into account all the steps of the nuclear fuel chain before it gets to the nuclear power plant, there is, in fact, more fossil fuel and carbon dioxide emissions trying to generate nuclear power than there is from any other form of energy. Not to mention the fact that the people that are on the front lines of this attempt to extract uranium from the remaining sources of uranium fuels around the world happen to be native peoples, not only in the United States, but Canada, Australia, other places. And the history of uranium exploitation on native lands is that these populations have been exposed to life-threatening levels of radiation as that uranium is mined and milled, and the waste materials from the milling of uranium remain on those Indian lands, generating further sources of radioactivity and health exposures for native populations in those areas. There are epidemics of lung cancer, epidemics of birth defects that are already the legacy of previous eras of uranium mining. And if we embark upon a new era of uranium mining, those problems from the past are going to be even more serious than they were in previous generations.
Where can people learn more about your book, Resource Rebels?
The book is available from South End Press in Brooklyn, New York, and the effort to protect Wisconsin from a new generation of nuclear power plants, information for that can be had at the Wisconsin Network for Peace and Justice website and the Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free campaign of the network.
And recently the Midwest Renewable Energy Association's Energy Fair had some events in regards to carbon-free and nuclear-free. They can visit the website. And is there a phone number where they can get more information as well?
The phone number is area code 608-250-9240.
Well, Professor Geddix, as a Native American myself, I think it's only appropriate that Native peoples attempt to do things appropriately when it comes to carbon and energy. So we appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much for being involved in the Thinking Green News Moment. This is Chris Schneider with the Thinking Green News Moment.